Welcome to Dr. Joe Unplugged. This podcast contains general information and is not in any way medical advice. The search for the fountain of youth dates back to ancient and even mythological times. Yet in some respects, not a lot has changed, and the search for immortality and anti-aging approaches continues apace. It's a fairly big business. In fact, it's a massive business. Recent research shows that certain lifestyle actions can help decelerate aging's course. And this work is not all that remarkable, if you like, or radical, and it isn't actually telling us anything particularly new. And that's not a criticism of the researchers. It's just that the findings are not particularly new. But again, it's the basics that we overlook. We tend to assume there has to be a complicated answer. It can't be as simple as that. It could never be as simple as that. But hey, guess what? It can be, and we'll tell you in a moment. Researchers from the Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine say that longer genes in the body might be a main cause of the body's aging. And again, this has been known for some time, that the end of the DNA strand called the telomeres, and we have the double-stranded DNA helix that's inside every cell, and the cells are turning over. In fact, when we look in the mirror, 95 to 98% of what we see was not there 2 years ago. You look from day to day and we look the same, but the cells are turning over. Some more quickly, the skin and the gut, pretty much every 24 hours. Bone cells, the most slow, about over a 2-year period. And some are in between. Red blood cells in the bloodstream have a lifespan of about 90 days. So we are in constant turnover. Every time the cells divide, the DNA helix splits and then reforms. And again, that's not just for us; that's for all living creatures. But what's been shown is that over time, the telomeres, which are the end part of the DNA, can get a little bit shorter, and this has been linked or associated. And nobody knows exactly why. But when you think about it from basic principles, look, the cells keep dividing. Maybe there's a certain number of times you just can't keep doing that, and if you reach a certain point that your cells have divided enough times, they don't want to do it anymore, then look, that's probably you gone. And these telomeres are analogized to the caps at the end of shoelaces. So you got your shoelace, you've got little caps on the ends there, the telomeres. So they're part of it, but a little bit different. And shorter telomeres, yes, are associated with an aging process, and they do tend to get a little bit shorter as years go by. And it's been generally felt, although there have been works done over the years that have shown it's not a given, but generally felt that it's inevitable, that they are going to get shorter. And it is inevitable that we are all going to shuffle off this mortal coil one day. I'm not quite sure, and people have different opinions on this, I'm not quite sure that of itself is what worries people quite as much as how they get there. So in other words, that I'm going to die is a given, but I don't necessarily want to spend my last so many years maybe in pain or infirm to some degree or not quite knowing what day it is. So if I'm reasonably fit, well and healthy up until close to the end, then that there is an end is fine. I mean, I don't think really anybody actually wants to live forever. Maybe some people do, but I'm not sure that that's a desire. But what I don't want is to have, a lot of misery, in inverted commas, in my life as I get towards the end. So I want to be in good health up for as long as I'm here. Right, so therefore, the interest is what can be done to slow down, if you like, the aging process so we can remain in better health for longer. And I remember hearing, it was over 20 years ago, a couple of doctors from the USA who made the interesting point, and I'd not really ever thought about it until that time. We changed very little in the early decades, as in between 20 and 30. Yes, there are some changes in the body. They're not massive. Between 30 and 40, again, there are changes. It's not massive. Those changes seem to kick in at an older age. Again, why might that be? A number of reasons, one of which may be the shortening of the telomeres. All right. So, what I suppose you're already wanting to know is what can I do as an individual to try and help this process? Again, keeping in mind that there are no force fields, there are no guarantees, and this is not saying that obviously you're not going to live forever, and no, it's not saying that the hair might go a little bit grayer, or that the skin may have a couple more wrinkles when you're 80 than when you're 40. We can reduce oxidative stress on our cells and their genes, and I'm quoting from the article here, by eating a healthy diet full of fresh whole foods, high in antioxidants. We can participate in activities that promote DNA repair, like exercise, intermittent fasting, or modest caloric restriction. Reducing stress and eating healthy fats like omega-3s also promote DNA repair. Reducing or eliminating behaviours like smoking, drinking excess alcohol, and foods that are highly processed or with added sugars also helps. Does this sound vaguely familiar? Yeah, it does. These are the basics of health. The basics of health. Eating mainly whole, W-H-O-L-E foods. So that's foods until maybe not that long ago were either growing somewhere or moving around somewhere. Foods that haven't had ultra-processing. So in particular, fake meats, and I've said this before, are foods to avoid, but a lot of highly processed foods want to be minimised. We live in the 21st century. Can we completely eliminate all these foods? Look, we can, but if there are some processed foods that you eat, that's not a problem so long as that's not mainly what you're eating. Obviously, stopping smoking is a good thing, and we've spoken about vaping a few times, and, really we should be doing all that we can to help smokers quit, not making it harder for them to quit. Is a glass of wine or your favourite tipple a problem of itself? No. Is excess alcohol consumption a problem? Yes. Regular exercise, obviously good for a whole host of reasons, including, as it turns out, DNA repair. Intermittent fasting, again, big public health have been very, very anti this. The evidence continues to grow about its benefits. Our ancestors did not eat 3 meals a day, and they certainly didn't regard breakfast as the most important meal of the day, because it isn't. This nonsense about breakfast being the most important meal of the day is not from the science. It's a marketing slogan by Kellogg's. Good on them. They're a very successful company. And if you sell breakfast cereal, well, of course, you're going to try and convince people that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Why wouldn't you? But it's not the science. But big public health has sort of grabbed it with glee. And, there are some funding connections in behind all of that, which we haven't got the time to go into today. Reducing stress, and there was work done, I think in the 90s or 2000s, looking at people with cancer. I think it's a specific study, and I could stand corrected on this, but pretty sure it was a study of women with breast cancer, and looking at stress management and looking at its effect on the telomeres. And they found that good stress management, and that again included things like meditation, mindfulness, regular exercise, maybe Tai Chi, yoga. There's a whole host of ways that people can manage stress. It was actually associated with some lengthening of the telomeres. And again, this is this study that's come out now, has the same findings. The one thing they haven't mentioned, but I think it is also important, is getting enough sleep. And that is probably a proxy in some respects for stress management. But we also know that if we are doing regular exercise, that we tend to sleep better. So it all wraps in together. None of this is particularly difficult. None of this means that you need to see any type of practitioner about it. Now, if you want to go and chat with a personal trainer about your exercise program, fantastic, go for it. And if you want some, dietary advice or input, again, from a doctor or a dietitian or other practitioner, again, by all means, go for it. But the basics of sensible diet, eating like our ancestors did probably until about the 1970s, doing some regular exercise, managing our stress, not overeating, not smoking, and not drinking excessively, are all changes that these are all aspects of life, or all habits that we can all adopt. Some people may choose not to, and again, that's free. People do have free choice. But if the question is, what can I do that may mean I will be healthier for longer, then adopting these really quite simple, not difficult, not expensive, easy to manage habits really is something that's within reach for each and every one of us. Thanks for listening to Dr. Joe Unplugged. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share. You can also follow it on all the socials. There'll be new content uploaded each week.